To thinking is contagious. As if we didn't know Joe Biden, what a decrepit, unqualified individual he is to be the President of the United States, based on track record of having done nothing for 47 years. We have here a situation that I think really, if you analyze it, proves the theory of who's calling the shots here. Even though it's Biden, the president, it's not Biden, the president. Javier Becerra, the AG, Attorney General for California, close ties to Kamala. She held a similar position. And Joe Biden went on TV, national TV, to nominate, saying how proud he was of his team and how great they were, and inferring that he knows who his people are, he knows who his team is, and he's picked a great group. Javier Becerra was supposed to be the nominee for Health and Human Services, even though he has no medical background. Okay? He's an attorney general. By the way, an attorney general who defended one of Kamala's minions in California on a Me Too charge, which was basically swept under the rug, and the individual that was defended by Becerra ultimately ended up resigning because the heat got so much. So Kamala, with her hypocrisy that she's already shown once when asked how she could be the nominee of someone who she deemed to be a racist, and said, laughing or smiling into the camera on the Colbert Show, it was a debate saying that you can't believe a word she says. She's now a proponent, always been a proponent supposedly of the Me Too and women's rights, and everybody she appoints is a female, which, how does that represent the demographic of this country? And how does that give me any confidence that those are the best choices? Because when you have only one group of people, you definitely have not made your choice. You've not made the best choice among the entire playing field. You can't tell me that every single best choice happened to be a female, okay? But let's get back to Becerra. So he was supposed to be the nominee, but guess who Joe nominated? Javier Bacharia. Now, we're still looking for that guy, Javier Bacharia. But how does that tie in? Obviously, you know, being facetious here, Bacharia, he doesn't even know who Javier Becerra is. He doesn't even know how to pronounce his name. He's probably never even seen the guy before. But you know his ties to Kamala. So deductive reasoning, thinking is contagious. Use your head. Who do you think made this choice? And who do you think probably made all his choices? Kamala, the left, the squad. Okay? And this is the direction that we are heading in. We are heading in a direction where the demographic is to appease. You know why? Because they know that the people that they are putting in to lead these departments are mere puppet figureheads, talking heads. The elite ruling class will make all the decisions. Those decisions will be then voiced by these talking heads that they put in place. Not the best, not the most qualified, okay? These are people that are given positions either through cronyism. We saw John Kerry. Definitely. No way that guy belongs in politics, okay? He is clueless, okay? And you now see a South Carolina representative, one of Biden's right-hand men, James Clyburn, saying that he needs to appoint an African-American to head the Department of Agriculture. because African Americans are the ones who were used to develop agriculture in this country under slavery. Again, political correctness. Again, affirmative action. All this leads to is ineptitude. People in over their heads. The head of the Department of Agriculture should be the most qualified individual, whether that's male, female, black, white, oriental, whatever it may be, the most qualified. No, the criteria is an African American. Just like Vice President Joe Biden, the criteria was a female. Automatically, not the best choice. You can't argue that you have the best choice, because if you limit the playing field, you don't view all the great candidates. Affirmative action has destroyed this country and will destroy this government. Cloward Piven, husband and wife, Columbia University professors, wrote a thesis about how to destroy capitalism. And you know what? It is being followed to the T. Among the ways to destroy capitalism, they said, and then ultimately implement communism, is first regulation and bureaucracy up the nose. This will shut down America, make it inefficient, make it slow, cumbersome, and not a leader, but a laggard and a follower. With this in place, it'll trickle down to farms, ranches, and industry will be regulated to the point where they can't do business, regulated to the point where they can't produce product. And at that point, which this happened under Obama-Biden, we will tell America that we are a service economy. And then the jobs will go overseas, like they did under Obama-Biden. Okay? Service economy. Guess what happens with a service economy? It leads to American people will not be able to be self-sufficient, supply chain will be offshore, and Americans will not be able to take care of themselves. So guess what? Then that creates a dependence on the government to take care of them. Like with Obama, Biden. When the welfare rolls and the food stamp rolls and the unemployment rolls were at record levels because there were no jobs, because the jobs were all in China, okay, where Biden sent them, okay? So what will we do? We will then create a country where the people cannot take care of themselves. They will look to the government for the handout. They will look to the government for help. And this empowers the government. It tells the people, vote for the one who's going to give you the most. Forget about what this country needs to be entrepreneurial, to be capitalistic, and to succeed. Vote for the one with the handout. The handout leads to what? Take from those that produce and have and give to those who don't. Socialism and communism. Then you will have a population that has absolutely no desire to move beyond the point of least resistance. Bread and circuses. Get their bread, get their crumbs, get their minimum wage, and tell them this is as good as you can expect it to get. We'll take care of you, don't worry. You're going to have medicine, you're going to have free school. In that school, we're going to teach you what we want you to learn. You're not going to learn American history. You're going to fall further and further behind, like in Cuba, when Bernie said how great Castro's education system was because he got all the Cubans to read. Well, guess what? Cuba's education system, yeah, people are literate, but guess what? They don't know anything. They have been brainwashed and indoctrinated like most of the many of the young people in this country that have gone through our education system, specifically or especially the public education system for the last 20 years. and believe all the Bolshevik training that has been put into their heads. They didn't even, my grandkids on December 7th, the only reason they know what December 7th is because I told them about it on December 6th to expect to hear about it in school the next day. Guess what? They heard nothing. They heard nothing. Okay? The cancel culture, eradicate the history of this country. Guess what? They did that in Cuba and they did that in Venezuela too. Isn't that strange, huh? That's the path we're following. And then I get people commenting on my programs about that what we're saying is propaganda and what we're talking about is delusional. No, no. Delusional? Delusional is when you allow history to repeat itself and destroy a country. This is the greatest country in the world. It was built under capitalism and it is being destroyed to bring it down to the level of the rest of the world where the elites can control the means of production, throw some crumbs out of the feeding trough to keep everyone satisfied, entertain them with bread and circuses, and pillage and burn and loot and end up with all the riches and all the means of productions. Look at Cuba. Cuba was the most prosperous country in the Western Hemisphere after the United States. Everything that you had in the United States, you had in Cuba in the 50s. When the new car hit the road, hit the showrooms in the United States, they were in Cuba. The casinos, the gaming, the gambling, the resorts, the entertainment, everything was there. The private industry, okay? No matter what people tell you about Batista's dictatorship, yeah, he was a dictator, and yes, there's no room for dictatorship, but guess what? There was an economy. There was capitalism and there was an economy. As long as you didn't get in Batista's way, you were allowed to make a living, have businesses, own businesses, create jobs, and people were prospering. The wealthy in this country vacationed in Cuba all the time. And what happened? Castro came in with a revolution to help the people. Look at Cuba now. Look at Cuba now. It is falling. The buildings are crumbling. There is no infrastructure. There is no food. The businesses are shut down. There is nothing there. The people get rationed. What they get in a month to eat is what we throw away here in a day. Okay? And that's also what has happened in Venezuela, one of the most prosperous, rich, natural resources, educated nations in South America. And guess what? Destroyed. Brought to its knees. Devastated. Under the guise of a revolution that's going to help the people. Guess who got helped in both those instances? Fidel Castro died with, some people say hundreds of millions, others say billions. Chavez, his cronies, and of course this illiterate, this walking donkey dressed as a human being, Maduro, that if that guy falls face first onto the ground will start automatically eating grass, okay? And that's what the revolutions that Bernie touts, that the left touts, that AOC touts, that's what we're aiming for. This country is in big trouble in the hands of these liberals. They are clueless because they have sold their soul for power and money. And we are all acceptable collateral damage. This must be stopped. And Georgia, you better get the cojones, okay, to vote the way you're supposed to vote. And you better police your voting system because it's fraudulent, okay, and it proved so in the presidential election. And make sure that this thing is done correctly, fairly, and that votes are counted correctly and once. And that the people who vote are alive, that the people who vote live with it in Georgia, and that the people who vote are United States citizens and are eligible to vote. because that didn't happen in the presidential election in this country, in the major cities of this country. People, we are capable of fixing this. We are capable of demanding better. But the only way that's going to happen is these politicians, I'm sorry, this system of politics that we have now doesn't work. They're all, not all, they are the large majority, the very large majority corrupt. And by the way, to get to the highest echelon in politics today, you have to be corrupt. So when you start dwindling down to the top tier, those who aspire to be president one day, they're all crooked. All of them. And that's why Trump, the phenomenon of Trump occurred, because he was not a politician. And then they needed to get him out because he caught them by surprise. Joe Biden is doing nothing but Kamala Harris's bidding. Kamala Harris is doing nothing but the left socialist bidding. And affirmative action in filling out the cabinet is the biggest detriment to this country. You can't tell me, you can't argue on one hand, okay, that you want fairness and equality, okay, and then demand that positions be filled at a rate that is not representative of the demographic of this country. African Americans make up 13, 15% of this country. Why do we need to be guided by race in choosing the most qualified person to do a job? There should be no race criteria. If in finding the most qualified, it all turns out to be one race, one gender, that's fine. Look at the NBA. I've said it a million times. That's how it's supposed to be. The best at the job get it. Now, if you went in there in the NBA now and told all these owners, hey, you know what? The United States is 60%, 55, 60%, whatever it is, 65% white. You got to have 65% of your roster white. Ain't going to happen. Ain't going to work. And it's not a good product. How can you argue to me and say on one hand that a segment of the population hasn't had opportunity, hasn't had the education, the ability to get an education, has been incarcerated and has been abused and not given up and not given a chance to become part of mainstream society, and then on the same token argue that you need more representation within that demographic in the boardrooms, in appointees, presidential appointees, in positions of authority? You can't. You can't, because if you're saying that you don't have the opportunity and the education, then you cannot say that you want a majority of posts filled by a demographic that you're saying hasn't been educated properly. How does that work? When you start talking about race as a qualification, that argument that I just made comes into play. When you say, I'm going to make the best choice, the best candidate, it doesn't come into play. Because then, if it happens to be all green people with one eye in their forehead, but they're the best, that's who should get it. If it happens to be a minority, African Americans, if it happens to be Cubans, Latinos, whatever it may be, whoever's the best is who should get it. Once you interject a criteria of race, then I'm going to interject a criteria of how that represents the demographic of this country. Because no longer is the qualification the most qualified. Now it is filling a quota. And guess what? That quota better adhere to the demographic. And within that demographic, the qualification of people who are qualified and have had the opportunity to reach said qualification. Okay? Please, you can't have it both ways. And this is something that I will talk about, and you can call it whatever you want. Okay? It is not racism. It is not anything attuned to that. The racism is on the other foot. Is on the people who use race as a criteria to divide this country, to put brother against brother, sister against sister. That's who the racists are in this country. And Booker T. Washington said it. I said it a few programs ago. Look up Booker T. Washington on racism, 1911, and it'll tell you everything you want to know. Thank you. Have a good day. Try subscribing. It doesn't cost you anything. I don't understand what is so difficult about hit the subscribe button. The more subscriptions we get, the more views we get, the more it gets circulated, the more you share this, the word gets out. I'm appreciative that we're at 100, but we should be way more than that. The effort here is being made to give you a good product. I will appreciate it be reciprocated by getting people to listen to this, subscribe to this, and let's get the word out. Because pretty soon, stuff like this is going to be barred. Thank you. Have a good day.